there's a lot of chatter about what our objectives is, what our goal is. I mean, I think the president's been extremely clear about our objectives, and it's that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But there's also been a lot of conversation about what are our capabilities. And look, I know this stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to reveal classified information here on air, but the President of the United States knows what we're able to do. He knows that we have much greater capacity to inflict damage on the Iranian nuclear program, but also on various missiles that threaten our troops. As you've seen, they've been launching those at our troops for much of the past 3 days. I think the president has made it very clear that the United States has a lot of optionality here. And, you know, we could go for a little bit longer, we could go for a lot longer, but I think the president just wants to make it clear to the Iranians and to the world that he is not going to rest until he accomplishes that all-important objective of ensuring that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, not just for the next few years, not just because we obliterated Fordow or some other enrichment facility, but because the Iranians themselves commit long-term to not building a nuclear weapon.
The objective was not regime change. The objective was to take out those missiles, the short and mid-range missiles, and their ability to produce them. We did that. That was objective number one. Objective number two was to eliminate their naval capabilities, destroy those and the missiles, and we are well on our way to accomplishing that mission. That is why I think the President has said, in his own words, the Commander-in-Chief has said this is going to be a operation that's short in duration. We certainly hope that's true. We pray for our troops and all those in harm's way, our allies as well. I am encouraged that our NATO allies are standing with us. The Arab states are largely standing with us, publicly, certainly privately. Iran was a great threat to everybody in the region and everybody in the world because it was an evil regime. The Ayatollah is no more. That was not the mission of the U.S. to go in and take out the regime, but that happened, and in my estimation, that is a great development for freedom-loving people around the world. Go ahead, Rahim.
Sorry, Speaker.
Yes.
Do you guys discuss the need for supplemental to get some new munitions and other things that our military might need?
It was brought up in discussion. There are more details to be determined, of course. It depends upon how long the operation goes and what the need is. But our appropriators certainly asked that question, but I think there'll be some time before we can put a final number on it.
Mr. Speaker, is there at any point you think Congress will need to give congressional authorization?
So, you know my background. I'm a constitutional law attorney. I'm a jealous guardian of Article 1 in the legislative branch. My understanding of the law, and has always been, and this is the tradition and the way the law has been used and observed over many decades, the President was acting well within his authority. What I just told you is the scope of what happened here and the situational awareness that they had at the time to make this decision. It's not a declaration of war. It's not something that the President was required, because it's defensive in nature and in design and in necessity, to come to Congress and get a vote first. And if they had briefed a larger group than the Gang of Eight, you know, there's a real threat that very sensitive intelligence that we had, you know, might have been leaked or something. So this is why the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces has the latitude that any Commander-in-Chief, any President always has, because they have a set of information that is sensitive, timely, and urgent, and they have to be able to act upon it. They did that. Now, there are, as you know, under our system, there are timetables that are involved here, but I think the idea that we would move a War Powers Act vote right now, I mean, it will be forced to the floor, but the idea that we would take the ability of our Commander-in-Chief, the President, take his authority away right now to finish this job is a frightening prospect to me. It's dangerous, and I am certainly hopeful, and I believe we do have the votes to put it down. That's going to be a good thing for the country and our security and stability.
When we talk about the international rules-based order, does this, the way that the Israeli and US forces have carried this out, does it undermine the rules-based order?
Not at all. First of all, there were many diplomatic efforts put in order to try and resolve the situation. Iran just enacted delay tactics and all kinds of methods in order to delay and get out and try to ignore their need. There were existential threats coming out of Iran which needed to be removed. All kinds of methods were tried to be implemented in order to resolve this issue in diplomatic means. Now, we have an armed conflict ongoing, so it is the right and even the obligation of any country to act in self-defense, according to international law, to remove the existential threats.
Has it worsened, though, in recent times? Was it an imminent threat? Because Iran's had these ballistic missiles and been working on them for many, many years.
Yes. I'll tell you why it was time sensitive. There were two or three aspects that were developing according to our intelligence sources. The first was that after the Midnight Hammer attack, we managed to take out, together with the United States, we managed to take out a lot of their facilities and infrastructure and enriched uranium, but they had full intention to go forward and even rapidly enrich uranium and develop a military uranium bomb, in fact, and also to dig it deep under the ground so that it would not be able to attack it. They'd have immunity, one could say, from any future attack. These two aspects which came out of intelligence led us to the understanding that we have a time-sensitive issue and must be dealt with, otherwise we have an imminent threat.
It's also been the focus, as you would know, and many of our viewers know, for Prime Minister Netanyahu. This has been his number one international focus for decades.
He is a world leader who has been talking about this for 4 decades. Since he began politics, he was one of the first to, like the canary in the mine, calling for this threat, which is growing and growing, and then it became a world community threat. This is the threat not only against Israel, it's against the West, it's against our values in general. So I'll just continue. The ballistic missiles is an imminent threat because they intended to stockpile thousands of missiles and then send them in one go. That is an existential threat to any country. We have the most sophisticated methods of interception developed by Israel and the United States, it is now being bought by the entire world from Israel and the United States. But these methods cannot handle thousands of rockets coming at the same time. That's why we see some of the attacks that have succeeded in Israel and the United States. So it was an existential threat. If they launched thousands of missiles at the same time, it could completely devastate the state of Israel or other countries.
And how much is regime change a focus here? How much of that is a priority of this?
Of course, we'll all be happy if the regime changes. I don't think anybody in the West should cry about that. But it's not the full objective. That's up to the Iranian people. The objective is to remove existential threats, which is the ballistic missiles and the nuclear aspect. It's up to the people of Iran to vote in their leadership.